welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for St. Patty's Day, March 17th, 2026. I see a lot of green out there. Good things. Let's establish a quorum.
Morning, everyone. Mr. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Robertson?
Here.
Mr. Huff?
Here.
Mr. Kirkner?
Here.
Mr. Sweeson? Mr. Lester? Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Gordon? Secretary Daly? Here. Mr. Chairman, please let the record reflect that we have 5 members are present and we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item number 4, has everybody had a chance to take a look at today's agenda? Any changes? All right,
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have 2 sets of minutes from the February 4th and February 17th meetings. Any changes to those minutes? Okay, make a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from February 4 and February 17, 2026.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, commission member reports. I just have one item. I attended the Billboard Zoning Public Information Meeting in Finksburg, at the Finksburg Library there. I thought Daphne, Claire, and Tiffany did a great job presenting that, those proposals. The community's very, they have their own website and all this stuff. They're very active, very interested. I thought they had a lot of good questions. A lot of the questions and comments were very similar to what we had when we had our 2 meetings. So I thought they were very engaged. I think we should expect some more feedback from them as we go through that process. Commissioner Gordon's not here. Any other commission member reports? That's it, okay. Administrator report, Daphne.
Good morning.
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 I have just a few notes for you all. First of all, a little heads up that we did submit the water resources element that you had a public hearing for back in February. And we have gotten comments back from the state that we're addressing. And you will see those comments back before you in April. Brenda will be here, and at that time, she'll also be looking for your approval of the WRE to continue moving through the process. But just so you know, you had the public hearing, and that is continuing to move through, and hopefully we'll be ready to move on to the commissioners soon.
Okay.
A couple of other things. We've undertaken the work on the deferral-related code revisions with the consultant that is on board with us. We've had a couple of initial meetings and did a field visit with them last Friday. So that is moving forward. We also are in the process of putting another consultant under contract to look at roadways in the Freedom area to help give us some information that we can use to address some of the circulation concerns there. And we have an RFP out for consultants to help with a small area plan amendment to the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan to address further some of the concerns about things related to design in the commercial districts in particular, as well as taking a fresh look at the land use designations and zoning in the Maryland 26 corridor.
Daphne, could you
Yes.
give us any timeline on that?
On the third item, the small area plan amendment.
On all the consultants and,
So the code revision, the consultant working on the code revisions are meant to have their work wrapped up, I think, in September. I'd have to double check the specifics on their timeline. The Transportation Network consultant, I'm not sure because we are still working through that process. And same thing with the small area plan amendment. We'll wait to see what we get back in terms of proposed process and timeline for those.
okay, thank you.
Chairman Kane mentioned the public information session that was held down in Finksburg related to the off-premises sign text amendment. We are working on scheduling the public hearing for that. It will probably be in mid-April sometime, but we have not gotten that date confirmed yet. And then lastly, just a reminder, you got some forms to fill out for financial disclosure. So if you could make sure you have those back by the deadline, that would be good. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Any extensions?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
We have 3 extensions that were granted since your last meeting. The first one is a subdivision plan. It's called Abbott Acres. The file number on that is P02029. This is the 16th extension of this subdivision plan. I believe it's 7 lots, and it is in Commissioner District 2. And on the positive side, the property just exchanged hands recently within the past year. We did talk to the new property owners maybe about 6 months ago. So they're trying to decide what to do with this and how to move forward. So I think that's good news. The second one is Herd Ridge Assisted Living Facility, which you probably recall. This is the second extension on this. The file number is S190030. This is an 80-bed assisted living facility. It is the second extension. It's also in Commissioner District 2. And lastly, we have S150005. This is the Crossroads Vehicle Repair Shop, which you also may be familiar with. It is the 7th extension for this plan approval, and it is also in Commissioner District 2. So Commissioner District 2 all around today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. BZA cases?
Good morning. I have 2 BZA cases for you today. Case 6604 is a request for the conditional use of boarding kennel, dog daycare, grooming, breeding for more than 10 dogs, and cattery. The size of the property is 120.087 acres. It's located at 4738 Geating Road in Westminster in the county's agricultural zone. Planning staff found this request consistent with the Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. Case 6605 is a request for the conditional use of a contractor's equipment storage facility. The size of the property is approximately 17.998 acres. It is located at 1430 Buckhorn Road, Sykesville, in the county's agricultural zone. Planning staff finds this request is also consistent with the Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. Do you have any questions about either of those?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item number 8, City of Westminster Annexation number 72.
Okay. The City of Westminster Annexation Number 72, Patamy LLC. This is an informational briefing. This annexation is located at 10 Sullivan Road in the 7th Election District and 3rd Commissioner District. The petitioner and property owner, Patamy LLC, is requesting annexation to obtain additional water necessary, approximately 1,332 gallons of water per day, to allow the owner to construct and operate a convenience store and gas pumps at the property. This is the annexation for the Sheetz convenience store that has gone through the site development process already. So, this is currently what the property looks like, westbound from Maryland 140, and the view from Sullivan Road on the eastern side of the property. This is the annexation plat. 1.4983 acres is under construction for a Sheetz convenience store with associated fuel pumps. The remaining 1.446 acres is Maryland 140 and is necessary to be annexed to create a contiguous corporate limit for the City of Westminster. As you can see, the annexation plat includes the road. This is a layout of the location of the plat. As you can see, it's within the growth area for Westminster and just outside the corporate limit. Here's the ortho for the property. The property is currently zoned in the county as C2 commercial medium intensity. Adjoining properties with the county are zoned C conservation and are 10,000 residents. The City of Westminster has indicated its intent to place the annexation area in the B business zoning district. General retail or general service between 10,000 and 60,000 square feet and fuel station are permitted uses in the county's commercial medium intensity zoning district. Automobile service stations is a special exception use in the City of Westminster's B business zoning district. There will be granted that special exception use as they've gone through the site development process. And the permitted uses in the city's business zoning district are not substantially different from the permitted uses in the county's commercial medium density zoning district. So a zoning waiver is not being requested for this. The designated land use in the 2009 City of Westminster Comprehensive Plan is commercial. The property is currently located within the existing final planning water and sewer areas. Through the agency review process, comprehensive planning recommends the city give public notice by posting the property prior to the date of the public hearing and notifying all adjoining property owners. And economic development supports this annexation. In the absence of outstanding agency comments, staff has concluded that the proposed annexation will not overburden county facilities. A zoning waiver is not required as it is, as the business zone is not substantially different from the uses within the county's commercial medium intensity zone. And this annexation is consistent with the Westminster Comprehensive Plan as the area is located within the city's municipal growth area. The next step is to present this to the Board of County Commissioners on March 26th. And planning staff has recommended a motion to move that the Planning Commission concurs with the findings presented by staff and communicate support for the annexation to the Board of County Commissioners. If there are any questions about this.
Questions? Comments? The road, 140, I don't think we've seen anything before where the road is part of the annexation. Is that a common thing, or?
No, we've seen that, actually quite a bit in Westminster, where they'll annex the roadbed as the means for creating the contiguousness. Actually, in this case, it's a little bit more direct, so it does, if they annex that portion of 140, it does
Yeah,
join a substantial section of the city. Sometimes they've even kind of gone along the road for a while to create that contiguousness, but that has been done before.
Okay. All right. Any public comment regarding the annexation? Seeing none? So this is informational only, but you're requiring a motion?
Yeah, so we did want to clarify, on further discussion about how to convey your findings and support for the annexation, we felt like that needed to be captured in a motion, so it's not strictly for informational purposes, and we'll make sure that for future annexations, we correct that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion that, I move that we concur with the findings presented by staff and communicate support for the annexation to the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes, please. Mr. Huff?
Yes.
Ms. Kirkner?
Yes.
Mr. Lester? Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Swason? Commissioner Gordon? Mr. Chairman, please let the record reflect we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. Item number 9, concept subdivision plan, Lionsgate Major Subdivision, P220033. And Amy Barcroft will present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, just 1 minute to get settled. My name is Amy Barcroft with the Development Review Division. With me, I have some representatives for this project. If you could introduce yourselves.
I'm Linda Alexander with CLSI.
Darren Barnes, one of the partners.
And we are here to discuss concept subdivision report for your review and consideration. This is file number P220033 Lionsgate. This is in Commissioner District 5. We are inside the Freedom and Priority Funding Area and the Designated Growth Area. You'll see on the map before us, we are located in the northwest kind of quadrant above the intersection of Sykesville Road and Liberty Road. And you can see the subject property highlighted in the blue line work And I just wanted to draw your attention to the zoning of adjacent properties. The subject property is zoned R20,000, as well as the adjacent properties to the east and the west. And they are developed with single-family homes around them. And the parcel immediately to the north is zoned conservation and the site of Hodges Park, if you're familiar with that area. That is a ball field and salt storage barn owned by the county. Adjacent to the south, that small red square is the site of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Historical Society building, and that is zoned commercial. But this is largely a residential area to the west of Hodges Road. Let's see if we can get, there we go. We have another slide of the site. Again, the subject property is 12.43 acres, the frontage along Hodges Road, which is north of Bartholow Road. Property is undeveloped, and the land is mostly forested. You can see in that slide. There is a stream that runs along the southern property line. A 4-lot subdivision borders Hodges Road on the eastern property line and includes that strip of road frontage between lots 2 and 3 of that existing subdivision. And that was intended for 50 feet of future roadway and was platted that way. Lions Crossing is a 3-lot minor subdivision, which was recently approved, and that's located to the southeast. The forest conservation for that minor subdivision is located on the subject property, so that's an existing forest conservation area easement already there. This property is inside both the priority funding area and growth area, as I mentioned. It is served by existing public water, but it is outside of the sewer service area. So no future sewer service is planned currently. So this plan shows 6 lots on the property. These lots will range in size from a little under 1 acre to 3.08 acres in size. The plan proposes single-family homes on each of the lots, and access is provided with a proposed use in common drive from Hodges Road. The use in common drive, I wanted to note, is proposed to be constructed at 16 feet wide with a cul-de-sac at the end, and this is wider than our required 12 feet width. The lots, again, would be served by public water, but as you see on the plan, have private septic systems, or sewer. Excuse me, private septic system in lieu of sewer. So if you find this plan a little familiar, you might recall that you saw it as a special report in 2022 under the name the Collins property. And the reason for that special report was the request from the developer to increase the maximum number of users on the use in common from 5 to 6. Our code indicates that 5 is the maximum in a residentially zoned property, and that increase to 6 users was approved in that special report presentation before you. So the initial concept for this site plan, subdivision plan came in December of 2024. We distributed it to technical agencies for review. And we held a technical review committee meeting in January of 2025. I wanted to note that we did have citizens attend and discuss the property. We had 7 citizens express their interest in this project. 2 citizens have since emailed to inquire about the proposed development. Some of the discussion at that technical review committee from the public included concerns about existing traffic, stream erosion, and questions about mailboxes. Another citizen who lives near the property has emailed you with concerns for the visual impact of the development. Again, it's existing currently as an undeveloped site. Through our technical review, we have had comprehensive planning note that the plan is consistent with applicable policies and recommendations. Stormwater Management has issued their concept approval for the plan. Stormwater is being addressed with some grass swales and a submerged gravel wetland to meet requirements. And you can see on the plan that there will be a small stormwater parcel that would be deeded to the county. Forest Conservation has granted concept approval, and that will be met with an on-site easement. As currently designed, landscaping is not required for this project, but our landscape technician noted that screening would be recommended between lots 1, 2, 3, and the Hodges Salt Barn to the north. So that's a recommendation. Grading, soil conservation, utilities, fire protection, and engineering have all approved the plan. The plan is exempt from floodplain code, and Water Resource Management has approved the plan with the proposed water resource easement of 3.30 acres along the southern stretch of the property. This property is subject to the provisions of Concurrency Management, Chapter 156, and will be tested for adequacy prior to the approval of the preliminary plan. Here are some photos I wanted to show. To the left, I'm standing on Hodges Road and taking a picture of where the site, Use in Common Drive, will come through those two existing properties and onto Hodges Road. So we anticipate that the existing parked cars would be moved out of the way for that construction of the Use in Common Drive, but that's where the connectivity to Hodges Road will occur. And to the right, I'm taking the photo, and the wooded area represents the parcel, and the clearing which I'm standing in is actually the Hodges Park property. So that picture is taken from the park, and the wooded area is the subject property to be developed. Please let me know if you have any questions or direction about this plan. Anything that I can answer for you today, or the engineer and the developer might wish to answer for you.
Any comments from engineer and developer?
Not really. We're just here to answer any of your questions. I would just make two small comments. This is the last piece of property that the Collins family owned over the years, that entire area along Bartholomew, as well as everything along Hodges. This side was owned by the Collinses. This piece just happened to be one of the pieces that wasn't developed. It is zoned R20. It does not lend itself to putting any type of public sewer in there, especially given that everything else around it is septic. So we've minimized as much of the impact to the woods as possible. And everything that you see here that's not impacted woods-wise, except for where the septics will be put in an easement to the county. And as far as the, one other item, as far as the entrance coming in, there's 50 feet. During the concept review, we were required to show that any drainage that would come off of that driveway, we're bringing that onto our site. So the way that that's being designed in there, there won't be any impact to either one of those. You know, we're going to stay within that 50 feet, and any drainage is going to come onto us, and we'll handle it by some swales on us. It will not go off the property on either one of those sides. We don't intend to take any more trees down here than absolutely necessary to put a septic system and the houses in, because obviously any trees we take down, you know, the homeowner or the developer is going to have to buy into a tree bank for those or plant somewhere else in the county to make up for it. So we are trying to minimize the impact to any of the environmental features. So.
Thank you.
So how many users are on the use in common?
Normally, sir, there'd be 5. In this case, there's 6.
How many in this case?
6. There's 6.
So the use in common is just for that
Correct.
development?
So when we came in originally to get the approval on the 6 users, I understand that the county's 12-foot wide use in common driveway. Most of the developers that we work for never put in a minimum use in common. So we came in and we widened this at 16. There is a pullover on this driveway in one location that allows for 2 cars. The cul-de-sac at the end of this thing is as large as a cul-de-sac would be on a public road. Currently, your requirements are only like a 24-foot radius on a cul-de-sac. This is 35. It's bigger than a normal it's as big as what you would put on a public road. The only difference is it's 16-foot wide versus a county road that's 18-foot wide. It's all open section, has a wide shoulder on this thing for stormwater management purposes, so it does look wider when you come in. And we did that to accommodate the fact that it was 6 users and not 5 users. And we put the larger cul-de-sac at the end because we figured, you know, you're going to have your FedEx guys coming back, you're going to have your UPS guys. 24 feet is not very large to be turning them around, so we put a full-size cul-de-sac in here, you know what I mean, as far as a county road. One of the questions was the mailboxes, okay? The county has a standard mailbox and trash little pad that's put in place on all these use in commons. We've been using them over the past 4 or 5 years. They sit about 15, 20 feet back. And, you know, there's a gang box, I guess you want to say they call it, for mailboxes. And then there's a pad put there for everybody to put their trash there. And then we've been lining those, we've been lining those in like a landscaped situation so you can't see them. So it shields them from there. So that would be positioned in that 50-foot strip, but it would be landscaped so that you wouldn't, it would just provide the screening for it. And we've been doing that across the board too. I'm not really sure if that's in part of your detail, but that's just something we do.
So the use in common, the driveway is owned by
The 6 users, yes, sir.
6 users,
Yes,
right?
mhm.
It's not a right-of-way.
No, it is not a right-of-way, and there's a maintenance obligation put in place, declaration of maintenance, when the plat records that's over that driveway, to maintain all that.
Okay, and then just a comment, and I thought it was interesting, talked about the 36-foot turnaround
Yeah, we have a 35.
against 24. It sounds to me like maybe we should revisit the 24 feet.
Can't
Just a
comment on that, I
comment.
just know what we put in place.
I know you can't,
Yes.
but
Yeah, we put,
I agree with what you said about,
we've been putting the 35s in place. If you remember, I don't know if you remember, some of them, you'll see where they used to have little landscape thing in the middle of them.
Yes.
Those haven't worked out real well, so we eliminated that, but we left the cul-de-sac the same size. So, provides a little bit more impervious, but it does allow better maneuverability, especially if somebody's taking a camper back there or just a UPS truck getting in and out, you know what I mean? So, so anyway, I just want to let you know that that was one of the things we did on this one because of that. Because we do have more users back here than just the normal 3 or 4, so.
oh, and forest mitigation, that's on site or that would be,
No, so this site, whatever we don't disturb, will end up being in an easement to the county for the woods, okay? Any of the trees that we take out, because we are taking trees out, we're gonna have to mitigate somewhere else. So we're either gonna have to buy into a forestry bank, which may not be available, or the partners that are involved in this do have other pieces of property that they would be planting trees on to make up for, and then those trees that would be planted somewhere else in the county would be given an easement to mitigate for any trees that were taken out here. Yeah.
the septic, is this sand mound or
No, sir, these are all conventional.
conventional?
Well, I shouldn't say that. Sand mound is a conventional system as far as MDE is concerned, but these are not sand mounds. These are all trench systems in the ground, and they are all known as deep trench systems. So they're going to be able to provide for that 4 or 5 bedroom house without a problem.
So there will be the maximum number of trees as possible left there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
What was you mentioned recommendations for landscape screening. Can you show the photo, the overhead, I guess, and where they're recommending screening?
Sure, so to the, I don't know if here we go. You can see that structure that exists is a county-owned maintenance structure. There's salt stored in that area for roadway, treatments. So the landscape specialist has said that while landscape is not required for the project, it is recommended to have landscape between, oh, my mouse is going crazy, to the south of that barn, along the lots that'll be created at that property line. So lots 1, 2, and 3. So to the north along this property line, they have recommended landscape, I guess in case the property ever changes ownership, or just to have some screening for the homeowners between that and the county-owned land.
Is the county-owned land, is that fenced?
It is not. There is an entry fence, like a gate you drive, I'm sorry. There's a gate that you drive through here, but there is not a fence between, I can show you my picture on the right. It's kind of it's a park, but it's kind of not maybe as built up as a park with any kind of pathways or benches or anything like that. There's a ball field that exists there, and it's pretty much an open field with the exception of that salt barn structure.
Amy, can you window in on this? Can you get closer on those lots?
How do anybody want to
No, I don't know. It's hard to see from here.
control? Yeah, I apologize. Here we go, we're zooming. Oh, I undid it.
There we go.
So to the, screening is recommended behind lots
So-
1, 2, and 3.
I don't know that I necessarily have a problem with that, but you see if those septic systems are within basically 15 feet of that property line. So if we put any type of screening, it would be strictly one straight row. We wouldn't be able to put any massive amount of screening in there, else we would affect those septic areas adversely over the period of time. Well, Lot 3 we could, that's not a problem, which I'm not even sure we'd be taking all the woods out on Lot 3 based on where the limit of disturbance is right now. And if you see that hatched area right there, that hatched area is actually an easement that the county has on this property to maintain those slopes for that park. So, but up on lots 1 and 2, I mean, we could put just a straight line of screening in there or something if you all wanted to. We just have to be careful where those septic areas are, that's all.
Just curious, what is the slope on that parcel approximately?
What do you mean, what slope?
Slope, is it fairly sloped, the entire parcel? Down the stream?
Once you get down to the backs of where the houses are on lots 3 and 4, it falls maybe 10%, 15%.
Okay,
The rest of it's sitting in there probably maybe 8%, something like that, 5 to 8%.
okay.
So the stream runs between the back of Collins Ave, okay. So all drainage will be staying up on mostly,
Yeah, so that stormwater facility is designed so that when the water leaves the site, there won't be any increase in the flow coming off of this site.
okay.
That's the reason it's designed. Now, when it flows off of us, it's on us to a certain point below that facility. It kind of meanders along this property line and Collins Estates. Then eventually it comes back onto us. When it leaves us again, it flows into a county easement down below one of the county's stormwater management facilities that the county owns off of Collins Estates.
Okay, yeah. Collins is kind of a lower area back there.
Yes.
That is- So nothing more will go towards them. Okay.
Good? Everybody good? Good?
So we don't have any recommendations.
No
No.
recommendations? No, okay. How about public comment? Any public comment? If you're making public comment, which I see there are some, please make sure you've signed in. Sign-in sheets are in the back. State your name, address, and talk into the microphone to facilitate audio and video recording. Comments will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Citizen testimony is not a Q&A, so it's like state your stance, your case, and things like that. Questions may be directed to staff after the meeting. And if any individual fails to comply with these rules, the chair may call the person out of order and may require him or her to leave the meeting. So, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Patrick Mullen. I am the owner of parcel 329, lot 18, which is 1095 Collins Avenue. My property is the one that on the zoomed-in view we have here, it's right in the lower left, goes across the gravel wetlands over to Lot 6. I do want to state a slight correction for what was just said. There's actually a steep hill from the Collins Estates properties down to the stream, so it's actually on both sides. Water rushes down my backyard into that stream and does from the other side as well, actually even from the Bartholomew side as well. What I've come here to request is that a cluster of evergreens be planted on the development side of the submerged gravel wetlands to break up the visual corridor that's going to be happening between my house, goes directly across the gravel wetlands to Lot 6. As you know, in the wintertime, like we have right now with all the leaves gone, it's just a straight visual shot. So I was hoping to have some restorative greenery put in there to handle the change in the visual corridor that it will be created once these trees are removed for the wetlands and for the other properties.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Amy, can you kind of move that out so we can see where he was referring to?
I'm right on the left of it. That's my property right there. Oh, I think he zoomed too far over. I'm sorry, go down, go to the right. So yeah, right above where the hand is, that's my house, right there. Okay. And then it goes straight across the wetlands over to, especially the easternmost house on Lot 6, but also at a diagonal front to Lot 5. So a few years ago, I put in a sunroom there, so especially because after the pandemic and working from home and everything, I have a nice big wall of glass there that, yeah, just hoping for restoring the view. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Josh Dimon. I live at 5757 Bartholomew Road. I am down and to the right of the drainage pond that they're talking about putting in there. If you don't mind putting the hand on it. To the right, please. There you go, right there. There's several reasons why this house was purchased for my family. One of them was that we were, at the time, told that this would remain a wetlands behind us the entire time. That has now changed. That's a concern. Additionally, we'd like to request that there be a cluster of pine trees or something to the effect for the visual impact as well. We've been most significantly impacted by the Alliance Crossing development, which was originally scoped for 2 lots up the hill from us. Now there is suddenly a third house. I heard today that it was noted that there was a third house approved, but the existing plans on file do not reflect that. I'd like to request an update be made to the existing homeowners in the area so that we are made aware of that approval process that was conducted. And lastly, and maybe shouldn't be mentioned too much on a recorded line here, my house serves a Department of War effort that is utilized for signals and traffic. And so some of my work that I do is impacted by the anticipation of additional Wi-Fi signals. And I have a concern about the ability to service certain asks. The area is already saturated consistently and is already a challenge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes. Sorry, one more thing. Yeah, one more thing, thank you. There's a spring that is not noted here that surfaces consistently. I am very concerned about the drainage. I have had to make a phone call to the developers about runoff into my yard already. We would like to see the swale plans to ensure that we are not impacted by that, because it is consistently, my yard's always flooded by this spring. We have had to plant trees over the years to try and absorb the water and had very little impact for it. So I'm concerned about what their plans may be in this, especially considering septic.
Is this spring located on the property that we're talking about here?
This particular plan is actually old. The plan that's actually been approved by Stormwater has the swale and some drainage that's coming off of that Collins Crossing. Or, I'm sorry, not Collins Crossing, Lions Crossing. and we were required by stormwater to pick up a good bit of that drainage that's coming off of Lions Crossing, and we have swaled it down along the back of this property line and are bringing it into that submerged gravel wetland. So there is significantly more grading and drainage situations happening that will be built that's not actually reflected on this plan that you have up here right now.
So is that above the wetland area?
So you see where Lot 6 is?
Yes.
And where his house is?
Okay,
We actually have on the most recent plan, there's actually a swale, an actual grass swale that's picking up the drainage that's coming off of Lions Crossing because it was determined that there's some, when Lions Crossing was developed, it was just allowed to come down into this area. We had to now pick that drainage up and bring it into this submerged gravel wetlands so that it doesn't continue to do any additional flooding down there. So while this plan doesn't show it, there is grading on that submerged gravel wetlands that comes the whole way up across the back of his property that I think would help. Because this plan doesn't show it, but the most recent plan that's, as a concept that's approved by Stormwater, has grading that shows the whole way up through that Collins Crossing right now. So,
yeah, share that with the landowner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would help to maybe share that with the gentleman that
we
you...
can. The county, because that's what Water Resource and,
If that's not...
that's what Water Resource and everybody has already
That's not
seen.
a current plan.
My concern with that design that they're discussing is insufficient. The wetlands are uphill from what they're discussing. So that all you're doing is creating a puddling space outside of the space that you're already trying to dedicate to.
We really need to see the upgraded plan or the updated plan.
That needs to be shared, please, because
Shared.
this is new information too.
I agree.
I agree. Okay. Yeah, so in terms of any recommendations from the board, we're not making any kind of final decisions, but sounds like we need a recommendation to see the updated or plan, and that to be shared with the landowners around that property, and any other recommendations.
I'd like to see the updated plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep in mind that this is concept too.
Understand.
So this is going to go through another whole review
Right.
from a preliminary standpoint, yeah.
Right, but I think we should
Yep, I agree.
working off the latest. Okay.
However, if this is concept, when the plan comes back, we will see it as hopefully what everything is being said, and that should suffice for the homeowners.
The other thing I would offer too is when it comes in for preliminary plan, we can provide extra sets so that they could be provided to the homeowners too. Before it ends up back here again, they would see it at the preliminary, that design, and have a chance to look at it at that point too. And it would be a farther step down the road from this design and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think personally, if I were a homeowner, I would like that, so I think,
So our
I see some
interactive
heads.
map to follow any project through the development review website, the development review process is updated on the county website every Friday with any new submissions that have come in. So any member of the public can follow along using that interactive map to see every plan set that's submitted, updated on a weekly basis.
okay. So perhaps if they aren't familiar with exactly where to look,
Yep,
they
we
can
can touch
check
base
with
after our meeting.
somebody in the back,
Yes,
and they
absolutely.
can direct them.
Absolutely.
Also, as far as the screening of the trees, we want to be good neighbors, so we'll work with them on, aesthetically making their view.
Yeah, I'm glad you offered that.
Yeah.
Because we have some landowners here that are concerned about that. I think we should take that seriously.
Yeah, I'm a homeowner as well, I understand that we will do that.
Good. Good. Any other comments? No further public comment? Okay, well, we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 10, concept site plan for Bear Branch Solar, S250010.
So,
David.
while we're getting set up for this, I just want to give a little context for reviewing the solar plan. So this is a solar project that has received its CPCN, or Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, from the Public Service Commission. So while this is a concept plan, and you can request certain site improvements, but because it's a solar project that has its CPCN, ultimately, the final action that you'll be asked to take on this particular project will be to finally affirm that they've met all the technical requirements. You can delegate final approval or ask to see it back. But in terms of whether you want to see this kind of project at this location, that's sort of been preempted by the solar approval process. So we're looking at site improvements and whether they've met the technical requirements of our code for a solar development. So that's sort of our context here. And I'll turn it over to David to walk us through the plan.
Okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Daphne. Good morning, Commission. David Beecraft with the Development Review Division. As mentioned, I am before you to present the next project on the docket, which is Bear Branch Solar, file number S250010. We have a few representatives of the project here with us today. I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is John Forgash, Soul Harvest Energy Project Developer.
I'm Billy Swales, Triad Engineering, Civil Engineer.
Brendan Bishop, Triad Engineering, Engineer.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And so as kind of already discussed by Ms. Daly, is what is being proposed is a ground-mounted solar facility. This did go through the state process, the Public Service Commission. It is before you as a concept plan at this time. So we are looking for review and direction on their current design. And with that, I'll lead into it. So for those who are unfamiliar, we are on the north side of the Westminster municipal limits. So the municipal limits are shown via this gray area, and the subject property is highlighted here, which you can see abuts that municipal limits area. Looking at the zoning of the properties, so the current zoning of this property and the surrounding properties is agriculture. There is, within the municipal limits, this property adjoining is zoned industrial restricted. So if we go to the next slide, looking at the property in its entirety, it is just about 63 acres. And this is shown as the remaining portion on the Midway Farm amended plat for this property here, where they allocated some land here to this adjoining property here. The site is accessed via Littletown Pike, or is accessed to the Littletown Pike, which is Maryland 97 shown here, via Lamb Drive, which is a private paved roadway. The roadway is currently 20 feet wide. The only other user of this private Lamb Drive is this property here, which is the Foursquare Church. As you can see, looking at the property, forest conservation easements encumber the eastern side of the property, shown by all of this gray shading. There is a stream that cuts through the property here via this blue line, but there are no FEMA 100-year floodplain designations on site. This property is outside of the Westminster priority funding area, as well as outside of the priority growth area. So kind of going into what Daphne discussed a little earlier, So within within state code, solar energy generating stations with a capacity to produce more than 2 megawatts need to obtain a certificate of public convenience and necessity, otherwise known as CPCN, from the Maryland Service Commission. A CPCN was requested, or the request was submitted by the developer to the state April 1st, 2024 for the construction of a 4 megawatt facility. The CPCN was subsequently issued on January 31st, 2025, subject to recommended license conditions. That is a 9-page document which was included with this packet. But some of the key takeaways of the license conditions include a CPCN expiration of 5 years, if not extended, the requirement of an approved site development plan, an approved grounds management plan, an approved truck routing traffic management plan, and a glare analysis. As well as the initiation of the decommissioning plan if there's no electric generation for sale to the grid for a period of 12 consecutive months. So moving forward to what's being proposed, so on May 7th, 2025, an initial site development plan was submitted to development review and was distributed to technical review agencies. As mentioned, the developer is proposing a 4 megawatt facility, which encumbers roughly 20 to 27 acres. This system, because of recent code changes last year, this is a principal permitted use within the agricultural zoning district. And that is subject to the site requirements outlined within County Code, Chapter 158.153, Section F. I'm going to go through each section of that code and talk about how this works with that section of code. Just bear in mind that the zoning administration has granted concept approval of this current plan. So this does meet all of those requirements that I'm about to go over. And while I'm going over, I just want to make sure that I'm showing the plan as you would like to see it. So I have a couple different renditions here. Let me know which one works best for you. So we have this plan here, which you can see shows the solar array and then shows the access drive, which connects down to Lamb Drive, which then connects down to Maryland 97. Another option, if you like colors because of St. Patrick's Day, we have this green highlight, but it's showing all the same information. Another option is an overlay on an aerial photography. So again, you see the solar array, you see the forest conservation easements that are back here and on the adjoining property. And then you see this access drive, which leads to Lamb's Drive, which leads to Maryland 97. And then alternatively, we have some zoomed in plan sheets as well. So if there's anything in particular you want to look at, to get a closer look at, we have these two options. So before I run through the report, is there any one of these plans that you would prefer to be on screen?
The green one.
Okay, I'll make it happen.
There we go.
All right, perfect. So running through chapter 158.153F, item number 1 talks about the setbacks and distance requirements. So county code states that there is a 100-foot minimum setback required from the property boundary to the solar arrays. However, the Public Service Commission order that was provided by the law judge as part of the CPCN specifically preempts local code on that setback requirement. And so, as currently designed, the nearest solar array, and this is just an approximation, but the nearest solar array to the property boundary is 65 feet. I'm going to get into this a little bit more into the report, but there is a landscape buffer, a 50-foot landscape buffer that's shown surrounding the facility where there's not already existing forest. In compliance with code, there are no residential buildings within 150 feet of the proposed solar panels or the associated structures. So moving on to item number 2 within that section of code, it talks about the height limitations. A maximum panel height of 15 feet is shown within these plans, which complies with county code. Item number 3 within sections of code talk about the location and appearance requirements for solar arrays. So this solar array is proposed at the terminus of Lamb Drive, which is a private use driveway, or a private roadway, I'm sorry. The solar array, it does meet the location and appearance requirements of county code in that the location is toward the interior of the property with an elevation that is roughly 10 vertical feet higher than Maryland 97. And then the ground mounted system is not affixed to any type of block walls or fences on the property. Item number 4 discusses sign requirements in reference to these systems. To comply with code, a facility sign is proposed at the gated entrance with contact information in case of any type of emergency. The detail of this sign is shown within the plan set, but there are no additional freestanding signs associated with this. Item number 5 discusses the glare requirements. So a glare analysis was provided and reviewed by the Public Service Commission as part of the CPCN process. A letter will be provided at the time of building permit application, which confirms that there's no glare impacts to adjoining properties or adjoining roadways. And this glare analysis was also provided to the zoning administration for their review as well. And these documents were acceptable for code compliance. Item number 6 talks about the electrical connection requirements. So the electrical connection from the solar array to the existing electric system or the grid, it does meet county requirements. So the project's point of interconnection to the grid is going to be via an underground line, which runs adjoining the access drive, which will hook to the existing power lines on the east side of Maryland 97. Equipment pads are shown within the fenced area, but there is no energy storage devices currently shown. Item number 7 discusses vegetative stabilization requirements. So there were various conditions outlined by the Public Service Commission to ensure that vegetative stabilization requirement in county code will be met. License condition item number 9 provided by the Public Service Commission states that in no case shall the grading or stormwater management plans include removal of topsoil from the site. And then license condition item number 11 provided by the Public Service Commission requires the developer to create a grounds management plan for this development. And that grounds management plan includes descriptions of the various types of grasses as well as other plants that they will be using, a schedule for how often they're going to mow the property, a plan for avoiding or minimizing the use of herbicides or pesticides on the property, along with various other criteria. Item number 8 with county code outlines fencing requirements. So fencing requirements are met. There is a 7-foot tall proposed black vinyl chain link fence that's going to surround the facility. The closest public road right-of-way is Maryland 97, Littlestown Pike, and that is further than the 50-foot requirement outlined in county code. There is no barbed wire associated with this proposed fencing. Item number 9 outlines buffer requirements. So a landscape buffer is shown and proposed within this property. So still a little bit of green on this plan here. So this green highlight here shows where that landscape buffer is going to be proposed and located. So this is, again, a 50-foot wide landscape buffer. You can see it terminates at this point because there's existing forest here under conservation easement, and it also does not extend along the back of the property because there's planted trees that are within a forest conservation easement back here as well. But along this property boundary, as well as the front and the unforested side portion here. Landscape plantings are shown to be planted at a minimum height of 6 to 10 feet. And there will be a landscape maintenance agreement and associated landscape bonding will be required as outlined within license condition items 20 and 21 issued by the Public Service Commission. This concept landscape plan was approved as compliant by the landscape specialist. Looking at item number 10, it talks about lighting requirements for these kind of developments. Site lighting is permissible, but no lighting is proposed with this development. Item number 11 talks about access requirements. So as mentioned, there is an existing private drive for Lamb Drive. At the end of Lamb Drive, they are extending the 20-foot wide access, and this will be turned gravel, which runs back into the gated site to a parking area back here. So there was a request to permit gravel in lieu of the required durable and dustless that's outlined within Chapter 155 of County Code. This request was forwarded to the Director of Planning and Land Management and was approved. The last item within code, item number 12, outlines the decommissioning plan. So a decommissioning plan was required as part of the CPCN process through the state, with stipulations outlined within license condition item number 37. As the decommissioning plan corresponds to the removal of infrastructure, it will be further looked at later in the process once we know what type of infrastructure will be approved and what will ultimately be removed with that decommissioning plan. So moving on past that section of code, there's another section of code which talks about parking requirements. Chapter 158 states that solar energy conversion facilities require one space minimum, but it includes one parking space per employee on the property. With no employees for this development, one parking space is depicted for this property and is shown back in this turnaround area here. Site compliance has granted concept approval of the plan. The proposed development is exempt from floodplain management. There are no forest conservation obligations with this development. Water Resources has granted concept approval of the plan. State Highway, as well as engineering review, granted approval of the plan with the existing access to Maryland 97. Comprehensive Planning has reviewed the plan and determined it is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan, land use designation of agriculture. Stormwater management will be provided through non-rooftop disconnects and bioswales. Stormwater management has granted concept approval of the plan. This plan was subject to citizen involvement on June 23rd, 2025, during the Technical Review Committee meeting. There were no citizens in attendance at that meeting, and I personally have not received any phone calls or emails in reference to this plan. Finally, the final site plan will be tested and reviewed for adequacy of public facilities in accordance with Chapter 155. And so, moving forward, just looking at the property here, I just wanted to give you an idea as to how this looks out on site. So looking at Lamb Drive on the left, we are at the terminus of the existing Lamb Drive looking into the site. And then on the right, we are beyond the terminus of Lamb Drive, but you can see, looking back, Maryland 97 is back this way, but it cannot be seen. So happy to answer any questions, as well as any reps with the project here.
David, there is no forest mitigation involved with this?
Not with this particular one, that's correct.
So you say that not this particular one?
Right.
Is
So
there forest mitigation on any of them?
So because they're not proposing the removal of any of the existing trees, there's no obligation that needs to be met.
So if a house was put there, it would be forest mitigation?
That's correct.
But because of this, which is taking out land, there's some disturbance, there's no forest mitigation, there's something wrong here.
So there is, I believe it's a state requirement that states solar energy generating facilities. So facilities like this, they do not have to meet any type of afforestation requirements. Because they're not removing any trees, that would be the only requirement that needs to be met. But because the state has stated that these type of facilities do not have to meet that, there's no obligation with this one. Now, if they were removing trees, say if that forest conservation easement was not there and they were removing some of those existing trees on this property, then there would have to be some sort of mitigation.
Just a comment here, something's wrong here. So a landowner who's building, somebody would want to build a house or a couple of houses there would have to comply with all kinds of forest mitigation rules. But because this is a construction here, it'll be there for many, 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 many years, there's none, this should be addressed.
Seems that way.
That's something we need to take up with the delegation.
I was going to say, that's above us.
Just a comment on this, that surprises me. There's something wrong here.
Yeah.
I think the CPCN is also a nice way of saying eminent domain, maybe.
Well, yeah, but still, you need to take care of the property, the land.
No, I understand that, but I think since it falls under that there, you know.
But a landowner has to spend $30,000, $40,000 to put one house on for forest mitigation, and something like this that disturbs the entire area of the property is free
Exempt.
of that, which seems like it's heaped on the home builder or the person who wants to build a house or live in a house, and all the burdens on them for forest mitigation and not on this. There's something wrong here.
I agree,
We
but
need to talk
I
to
think you have to take it up with the state.
Yeah, I know, but you have to start the conversation
know.
somewhere.
I agree.
And I think this is a good spot to think about this,
I agree.
because I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate to ask at this particular stage, not to heap on you guys, but to just ask the question. Because we got a lot of these things coming down, and if you take it as an aggregate,
How many other communities?
we're trying to look at solutions with forest mitigation and the costs of it in this county and what it does to individual people. And then we see something like this, just think it needs to be addressed. So I think it's appropriate to bring it up. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
You just happen to be the recipient of my concern.
Any other comments?
Oh, just one more. The line that goes out to 97, that's negotiated with the landowners,
The underground line?
or is that part of the underground line? Yes, sir. Is that a disturbance to other landowners?
So coincidentally, Lamb Drive is shown on its own parcel here.
Okay,
That person that owns that parcel for Lamb Drive also owns this property here.
okay,
So there should not be much issue, if any, running that line out.
just wondered.
So in Lamb Drive is blacktop,
That's correct.
and then this is Stoughton, is that?
Yeah, so as you look at these pictures, this is still a pretty accurate representation. Lamb Drive is blacktop, and you can see it leads into this gravel, existing gravel farm lane. That a similar lane will be put in, which runs back to this site, gravel.
Okay.
Is there any presentation or discussion with the airport about what's going on with the property?
Yeah, so there are various boundaries with the airport where they like inclusion into plans such as this. When this first came in, they were included in that initial distribution to say, hey, this is being proposed, just to make sure that there's not any adverse impacts of planes flying over. And I heard crickets. So I took that as silence is golden.
I believe we also received a letter of confirmation approval from the local airport as well.
That would have been with the
Yeah, for the
CPCN
CPCN
process. We have to,
process.
they have to do a FAA
And I know that
filing.
both approaches as well were included in the glare study as well.
Right, that's what, I'm thinking about the glare and, you know, the approach and all that stuff. Okay. You mentioned that wait a minute, I'm scratching some notes. The height of the solar panels is going to be 15 feet,
That's right.
and the location of the land is 10 feet higher than Route 97?
Give or take, yeah, just looking at the contours of this site versus the contours of 97.
So does that make where the solar panels will eventually sit 25 feet above Route 97?
It's possible.
So does it make sense for a 6-foot-high tree? You know, one of the things we've heard with all of these is the visual thing. People don't like to see the field as they're driving up 97 or wherever, 27. So does it make sense to do anything higher? Could something be done higher than 6 feet? Because it's going to be 25 feet above grade?
I mean, just to be clear, these are trackers, so single-axis trackers, so when we're talking 15, that would be the maximum
Right,
when it's, you know,
I get it.
up, and then at night it'll be, you know, flat. But as proposed, the trees are sized based on the caliper of the trees, and so the heights of those trees, I think it shows in plantings anywhere from 6 to 10 feet planting, and then from there, those trees are going to grow over the course of their life up to, I think it's what, 50 to...
Yeah, most of them are over 30 to 60 to 70 feet tall when they're mature.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's going to take time to get to that maturity, but in 5 years, they are going to be
And
25
what
feet.
type- what
They'll
type
be
of
25
trees-
feet tall.
What type of trees are you thinking about doing?
We have red maples, black gums, American lindens, red oaks, eastern redbuds, down service berries.
No evergreens or anything like that, fast growing?
We have American holly, eastern cedars, silky dogwood, arrowwood, viburnum, and black calls.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's various layers of the 50-foot wide buffer that'll be planted based on the design.
Okay. And what was the total acreage? Did you say 63 acres?
So the total acreage of the entirety of the property is 63 point something acres,
And only 27 is going to be used for the,
give or take, right?
okay.
Just curious, how many homes will this solar array
That's my next,
allow for?
quite a few.
Will power?
Power, yes.
Probably about 1,600 homes,
Yeah.
1,500.
1,600?
Yeah,
Wow.
quite a few.
And again, just a high-level comment, I mean, when we first approached the landowner about this property over 4 years ago, at that time, the county was asking developers to look at remainder parcel properties and provide us with a map of those remainder parcel properties. This was one of those properties, and one of the reasons that we got real excited about it was just, the natural setback off of Littlestown Pike, just how far it is, over 1,000 feet from the road. Soul Harvest Energy, we're focused on developing properties and at locations that are, tucked away or, really are set back significantly in a place that's going to make sense for the community and everybody involved. So that's kind of what drew us to this site right from the beginning. And, just lucky that we had the same vision as the property owners themselves.
So
That's sure a beautiful set of planting of beans there, too. Gorgeous.
So that solar stays in Maryland or Carroll County, doesn't go to
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the power that's generated from the facility will offset BG&E retail customers that sign up for this program. They'll receive a discount off of the retail rate based off of, buying energy from this solar project that has qualified under the state's community solar program.
I need that.
Be happy to provide you with more information about it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, well,
Public
you'll,
comment.
no action required, right?
public
Oh, I'm
comment.
sorry, public comment. Thank you, Liz.
We're doing so good.
I scratched over it with my notes probably. Any public comment? Seeing none. We'll see you guys soon, I guess. Right? We're done? No motion, no article? Good.
That's it. The only motion that would be made at this point is if you wanted to delegate final to the chair. But the only thing we're looking for definitively was, we have it as review and direction. So it's,
I'd like to review it again.
I'm gonna review- well, bring up the
I'd
motion.
like to review it again.
Oh, okay.
Sure, we need a motion to see it again.
I don't think so.
We don't need a motion to see it again?
No.
We'll just see it again.
perfect. Thank you all.
No, I'm not. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Mike, I know we're going to take a break later. Could we take a 5-minute?
Yeah, got a request to take a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break. Thanks. We'll call the meeting back to order. Item number 11, the text amendment for planning commercial centers. Planning commercial centers?
All right. So as you may recall, at our last meeting, I shared a presentation with you on the planned commercial centers, which are one of the development types that's subject to the deferrals in freedom. And the proposal was to look at removing the section of our code, or applicable sections of our code, that allow for residential uses as accessory to and commercial center. And the rationale for that was that there's concern about the residential use, which is restricted to the second story of a planned commercial center, and the lack of real guidance that our code has related to how that should be executed when that option is taken. So we had a couple of ways that we could address those concerns. We could potentially develop some additional guidelines or what have you related to planned commercial centers. But given that there has been a fair amount of conversation in the realm of the master plan related to mixed-use development and how that should happen and where it should happen and whether it should happen at all, it feels appropriate to address the immediate concerns related to residential as accessory to planned commercial centers by simply taking that out of our code and then working through this question of what's the best way for mixed use to be allowed here in Carroll County as part of the broader master plan discussions and developing a real thoughtful, intentional approach to mixed-use development as part of that process, rather than simply just allowing it as an accessory option to a planned commercial center where we haven't really gone through the process of figuring out whether that's the right place to have this kind of development, or whether it's what kinds of development or design guidelines might need to be associated with it. So that's sort of the context of what we're talking about here today. I provided you with a redlined version of how we might go about this, which is to take out the accessory use piece of the planned commercial center. It primarily happens in two places. Section 155.092, which is the section on planned commercial centers in our development and subdivision regulations. We conveniently have one whole section. This is section D. You'll see here in the red strike-through text that relates to accessory uses. All of the text is solely addressing residential uses as an accessory use to a planned commercial center. So section D, numbers 1 through 6. The proposal would be to simply remove that. So planned commercial centers remain in the code, at least in 155 as written. The only thing that would change would be to take section D out, which addresses that residential use as an accessory use. And then the corollary to that in 158, which is our zoning code, 158.083, which is the regulation of accessory uses in commercial and industrial districts. Currently, residential uses or dwellings accessory to a planned commercial center are listed in, sorry for all the scrolling here, 158.083A 1L. And what you see here is language that we had talked about at the last meeting, which refers to a specific date before which any dwellings accessory to a planned commercial center would have to have been approved in order to still be allowed. The concern there was we have 2 of these developments in the county already. They're constructed, people are living in them. We don't want to create a non-conforming situation by simply disallowing those uses entirely, but we don't want to allow new uses. So the proposal here is to simply add in this section a piece onto the end of the existing text that says that they are allowed when approved prior to December 18th, 2025. And I picked that date because that is the date that the deferrals went into effect, and because this is specifically being instigated because of that deferral action, that's the date I picked. We really could probably pick any date. We could make it January 1st, we could make it today, but that seemed to be reasonable because this is in response to that deferral action. And that's what we would need to do in order to make sure that dwellings accessory to a planned commercial center that are already in existence don't become non-conforming. So it's a pretty clean approach here. Open to any conversation you want to have, any other suggestions or questions. Certainly a discussion as to the merits of the proposal or what else you might want to look at in terms of addressing residential uses as accessory uses in planned commercial centers.
So one of the primary complaints, I think, was how they looked. Went into DC Saturday night and along the way came down 16th Street and noticed that there were quite a few commercial properties there with buildings above it, clearly residential, and I wasn't smart enough to pick my phone up and take pictures, but they had all different kinds of designs up there that looked very aesthetically pleasing. Nobody had the same flat fronts that we saw at these two places. So I think maybe going forward, when the guys that are researching all this for the county come back with some suggestions, that may be something that would be okay to incorporate into this type of thing if we were looking to do that in the future. It does serve a need for people. Not everybody can afford even the simple townhouse that's out there. And of course, the apartment buildings that do go up are less than aesthetically pleasing too, so design may be a big thing.
Yeah, and this is part of the scope of work that the consultant who's looking at code changes associated with the deferral will be addressing. What we'd be looking to them to address with respect to this particular issue would be those kinds of things. What does how do we get to a good outcome in these kinds of projects? And what might we need to consider code-wise in order to get that good outcome? A lot of other jurisdictions have specific mixed-use districts, zoning districts, so that's an option. There's also certain jurisdictions that have more rigorous design standards, or even things like amenities that are required in mixed-use projects that speak to the residential component and create a pleasant living environment as well as a good place to do business. And those are some of the things that our code currently is lacking. As I said at the beginning, we could have also addressed this by looking at our current subdivision and development and subdivision regulations and adding to them. But I think there are still some open questions based on what we've heard so far with the master plan as to what the right approach to mixed-use development should actually be. And maybe that's not that the only place that can occur is in our planned commercial centers. So those are the kinds of things that I think the consultant will come back to us with some ideas on, and it may be that ultimately we end up adding in some bits and pieces so that you can do that kind of development as part of a planned commercial center. It's kind of open-ended at this point, but I agree with you. It's an option for a living or a housing type that we don't have a lot of here in Carroll, and certainly meets a need, particularly in terms of maybe more affordable types of units. But we want to make sure that we're creating a good place for people to live, a pleasant place for people to live. And so I think the concern is that we just don't have enough guidance right now to end up with a good product.
Yeah. Affordability, of course, is what the state is looking at, and in the market there is limited affordability out there when you're looking at young people who would like to get out of their parents' basements and move forward into something. They can't afford to buy, so they're looking at some type of something to get into that is like that. When you talk about amenities, it starts to become more expensive for it to be affordable because those amenities jack up pricing, so. Yeah, it's a kind of no-win. And a lot of, even in the upper communities, a lot of people aren't interested in the amenities right there. They want to keep their housing costs down because they're already paying exorbitant fees, so.
Sure. I mean, there's certainly different varying levels of amenities. I mean, you can have pools and gyms and all kinds of things, or you could simply have like a courtyard space where people could get together, or some kind of place where you could have outdoor eating areas or what have you, something that speaks to the residential nature. We were recently driving around and looking at some of these places right now, and frankly, we couldn't even figure out where the entrance was for the residential units. There's no place for somebody to get together with friends outside of their actual unit. Those kinds of things are, I mean, some people might call them amenities, but they seem like the kinds of things that you would simply want to see in a good design. Something that speaks to the residential character of this area and not just, you know, a commercial type of structure that's been adapted for people to live in, which is, I think, what some of the frustration has been with how these have been executed, because we don't require anything beyond what's already provided as part of a planned commercial center. And again, if we're talking about what it would be that we would want to see in some type of mixed-use development, those will all be part of conversations that we have further down the road, and we can look at what some of the cost implications might be for those types of projects or the types of units that might be available through them, and try to find that good balance between a good quality product and something that is affordable or offers some affordable options. Other thoughts or questions on what's proposed here?
I mean, it's really, I don't think it's our place to define the concept drawings for the developer. Certainly should have some, I guess how much of a point do we want to put on those design elements, other than do we say, you know, that the second story, are we getting into color schemes and things like that? Are we getting into, I guess I'm struggling with how do we define that in code?
So, we're not at that point yet.
Right.
But some of the things that I've seen other jurisdictions do relate to not so much the minutia of the design as the design elements that you might have. So for instance, some kind of differentiation, if you've got a ground floor retail component and upper story residential, some kind of differentiation in the design elements that are used. So it's not all the same material, all the same window treatments, all the same whatever. So maybe some sort of differentiation in that sort of architecture. You could also require, for instance, that there is some kind of common open space component or plazas or what have you that are part of the residential nature or the mixed-use nature of those types of development proposals. You could look at separating the parking areas and the access areas. You could look at the ways in which the residential and non-residential relate to each other, or the way that they're separated from each other. Even things like, if you think about, if you live in a mixed-use community and you happen to own a dog, where are you walking that dog? Is there a place for them to go, or are you just walking out into a parking lot? Those kinds of things. How are you able to maybe circulate around the site? Because on the weekend, you might want to get outside and go for a walk. What's the lighting like? What's the signage like? What's, all those kinds of things that speak to the fact that somebody lives here. This is where they're making their home. This is where they live out their daily lives. And that's a very different, set of things that you would want to see there from this is a business development and our focus, our emphasis is on how it acts as a retail space. So there are all those kinds of things that you can add in terms of what you would want to see in a well-executed mixed-use development that are not, you must have a colonial style of architecture that uses red, white, and blue color scheme or whatever it might be. You can look at this from a lot of different angles, and mostly the real basic design elements around massing, materials, windows, circulation, public spaces, those sorts of things can be codified without being super dictated.
I mean, that's why I think it's a great idea, just to have the consultant involved that specializes in this, because, I mean, again, as Janice was just in DC, and obviously in my line of work, you see all kinds of, assortments, and if they're done properly, they can be very nice, like you said, having this is the retail, this is the, in a lot of places too, like you said, they'll have specific retail parking, specific resident, so it can be done nice, and these type of buildings and facilities can definitely be a huge, great thing for the community, housing, all that good stuff, so.
But again, we'll look to the consultant to give us some good examples to sort of start working with. But for now, the proposal here would make sure that we don't get additional proposals in while we're trying to sort out what actually we want to see, where we want to see it, how we want to see it.
And it's okay to backdate what
Yeah.
we're talking about?
Yeah, again, both of the projects that we have in the county are already constructed, are already occupied, so setting a date, whatever that may be, whether it's December 18th or something else, would simply allow those as accessory uses to continue in existence.
Right. And there's nothing in the pipeline for anything like that
No.
coming at us? I mean, if that's the case, then I don't know if there's a reason to have any backdating of this. You know, because if the two existing properties, they're going to be okay. This is just moving forward.
Right.
This is what we want.
Yeah,
I think
there-
backdating might raise a potential problem if we did that. If somebody, you know, you never know. But, so, yeah, I think this is good.
Well, basically, it's saying they're grandfathered.
Right.
And so,
Yep.
and anything after that would be new guidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So next steps are,
So if you don't have any revisions to what is proposed here, then I would entertain a motion from you to approve the text amendment as presented and forward that with a favorable recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Once they get it, I'll make a presentation to them, transmitting your recommendation, and they will have a discussion on that. If they choose to, they can have a public hearing on the matter, and then we'll move through that process the same way we do with every other text amendment.
and I guess, just to clarify what the point I was trying to get to earlier, you know, when we see the site plans or the concept plans, that's when we have the ability to say, well, we'd like the lighting to be like this, and the shrubs to look like this, and the trees to be here. That's the time for us to provide input on design. So the same would be for these types of structures. That's when we would provide input to the developer, the builder, saying, well, we'd like none of the, you know, we're going to have 10 units above this, whatever. We'd like for them to all look a little different, so it's not cookie cutter. We'd like to have, you know, and then that's when we can provide input into the design elements. We can't provide design elements at, you know, as we're writing you know, section 158.083, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a both and. So right now, there's nothing in our code that you really have to sort of hang your hat on in terms of pushing the developer to provide a certain type of product. So perhaps, and again, we may be putting the cart before
Right.
the horse here, because I think it would be helpful to see some examples and to say,
Yeah.
this one goes too far, this one doesn't go far enough. These are the kinds of things that we think would be beneficial to have that the developer can then look at. And, you know, here's the thing, the more ambiguity and the more generalities that are in the code, the harder it is for a developer to give you, at the first pass, something that you're going to respond positively to. It also gives you less to sort of fall back on in terms of what the county has already established as expectations for these certain types of developments. So again, we can look at different examples that are sort of the bare minimum in terms of guidance, and examples that are quite developed in terms of what they lay out for certain types of mixed-use developments, and then everything in between. And you can kind of find your comfort level in terms of what you think would work best in Carroll County, and would get the kind of outcomes that are desired.
Okay.
Was this in response to the initiation of the consultant, or the deferral, or a review from the staff of all our, I mean, what initiated this change?
So this was
what
one
was
of
the
the,
nexus?
yeah, this was one of the development types that was subject to the deferral. And again, the concern that sort of put it into that category was projects in the Freedom area that were done under these provisions that did not lead to a desirable outcome, at least from the perspective of certain people. And I think a desire to get a better quality product that fits in with a neighborhood, that reflects the residential component, that sort of thing. So that was the origination for the topic.
It was pretty controversial when we had that project. And the first one, I think, everybody kind of thought, well, that's probably okay. And then it was not what everybody anticipated, and then went downhill.
And here we are.
Yeah. So,
I like the idea here, and I think it checks off a couple boxes, potentially with affordability, with, dipping our toe into multi-use, like we've all seen and apparently in different communities. So I think it's a positive step. I think it's probably going to be part of the 10-year plan. Needs to be, I think, but.
Well, if mistakes are made, you correct the mistakes, and this is an opportunity to do that. So I give you credit for working on this.
Yeah.
A lot of credit.
We'll talk about it in the master plan,
Okay.
I'm sure. Cool.
Try to make a motion here, make a motion that we approve the text amendments for 155.092 planned commercial centers with a favorable rating and forward it to the commissioners.
I second.
Roll? Roll call?
Mr. Haff?
Yes?
Ms. Kirkner?
yes.
Mr. Lester? Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Soyson? Commissioner Gordon? Mr. Chairman, let the record reflect we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Did we do public comment on that?
Yeah.
Liz is watching me for public comment. Okay, let's adjourn. We're going to adjourn our meeting, and then we're going to reconvene for a master plan work session. So I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I move the adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Give me 1 second here. I'm just trying to unhide one of our columns. There we go. Oh, That's not actually going to be helpful, so. Okay. So we're continuing to work through the recommendations from the work group reports. Just a refresher, we've been going through all of the recommendations from the agriculture, economy, and housing work groups were grouped into one of four categories: policy recommendations, land use recommendations, fiscal or capital recommendations, and then regulatory recommendations. So we got through policy recommendations over the last couple of meetings, and now we're going to dive into some land use recommendations. And again, as a reminder, these are, there are a limited number of these. It looks like we've got maybe about 20 of them. This is not the full set of land use recommendations that I anticipate ultimately we will have in the master plan. These are simply the ones that came out of the work groups that were land use related. Okay, so you all should have a copy of these from your email. We'll just start at the top. As we did before, we added in some notes, either from, if it says staff, that's comp planning staff. We also have some comments in here from economic development, public works, development review, for your consideration as you're discussing these. So we'll start at the top here. The first recommendation is to look at extending the priority preservation area east, north of Westminster, and south around Maryland 27. This is coming from the Ag Work Group as a way to increase the possibilities for focused ag preservation. See, I wonder if I can try to just zoom in here a little bit. Thank you. Nope. Goodness. This mouse is tricky. Okay, this probably gets us close enough. So currently, the priority preservation area kind of follows where I have my cursor here. So a little black line that goes on the western side of Westminster, and then down through Wakefield Valley, and then terminates kind of in this vicinity. The recommendation from the Ag Work Group was to look at extending that to the east, so further over towards Manchester, really, to grab this, this quadrant between 97 and 30. And then a little bit further south and east in the vicinity of the 27 corridor. Again, the rationale for that was to try to really focus where ag preservation could be encouraged, expand the opportunities, but keep it in an area that makes sense in terms of where there's already a concentration of ag preservation easements, where there's also some good soils, good ag infrastructure that would indicate that this is a good area for long-term viability of agricultural activity. We would have to go through a process to amend our priority preservation area. That's a state designation that that we applied for and were granted when that legislation first was established. And I want to say that was 2012, maybe. There's a process that we can use to expand the area, but we'd have to kind of go through meeting the requirements for what qualifies as a priority of preservation and have that approved by the state in order for it to be official. So with that, I'll stop talking and open it up for any discussion that you guys might have.
Does that extend into any of the Upper Patapsco Rural Legacy area, or does that exclude that? I'm not sure where that line runs over on the,
Yeah, the
Right-hand
coloration
side of the
here is not great, but there is a light blue area
okay, I see it now, all right.
there. That
Okay.
is the Upper Patapsco Rural Legacy area, and then Little Pipe Creek is over in this vicinity.
So the light, okay, I see the light blue now. Didn't have my glasses cleaned.
It's very faint.
Also, just want to note that this line was very roughly drawn during the work group sessions, as I'm sure you're aware. So we would look to refine that for sure.
I mean, yeah, because I guess my concern is that little fish hook, I guess, going over the top of, I guess, Westminster there, because that would almost block out more, and basically the best way for growth is near or in the municipality, so.
Yeah, if we wanted to pursue this, we would sure want to make sure that it's aligned with other recommendations in the master plan related to where growth opportunities should be identified as well.
And then with the intent also to be basically say that from this point on, only this land in these areas would be eligible for ag pres, or just to put a,
It would be priority.
like say, you know, we really want to pursue these first, but not necessarily block out anybody else.
They're the priorities.
Yeah, so the priority preservation area, by identifying it in our master plan, basically says this is where we would like to focus most of our efforts. It kind of gives those properties an edge in the easement acquisition process, because they get some additional points for that, but it doesn't exclude other areas of the county from being considered for preservation.
It's kind of on paper that there are areas that we prioritize. And so, and this is basically for state funding.
Okay.
Now, county funding is a different story. And I don't think there's anything tied to priority preservation areas with county funding. That's the discretion of the commissioners and the Ag Advisory Board. If a property outside of that priority preservation area would be eligible for the county program, that's exclusive of that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is we've talked about trying to develop some sort of strategy for land preservation, and certainly defining a priority preservation area as kind of your focal part of the county that you want to preserve land, because the PPA does have, as part of the state designation language, a goal of preserving 80% of the land within that area. So that's kind of the idea there. If at some point a more sort of targeted strategy for land preservation in the county were to emerge and the priority preservation area was a big part of that, it could influence maybe where we choose to direct even county money for land acquisition, or easement acquisition.
It's a yin and a yang, because as we expand our area, or want to, or suggest it be expanded, in the same breath, we're sitting here being forced to approve projects that eats up the land that's eligible for ag preservation. So it's a noble cause.
It really is.
Yes, right, at this stage of the game, that's about what I can say about it. It's hard to get 80% when the 80% you're looking for, or the rest of it, to get the 80%, what you're looking for is starting to be devoured piece by piece by piece, and we're seeing that. Just an editorial comment here.
And I don't have the statistics at my fingertips right now, but I did recently try to figure out how close we were, what our current percentage of preserved land within that area, within our existing priority preservation area is, and I feel like it's in the 60% range.
It could be close to that by now. I think you're about right on that.
Yeah, so for some reason, 13,000 acres sticks in my head as still kind of potentially out in this PPA that could be put under easement.
You have a good memory. It's about 13,000.
Okay.
That's left to meet the 80% goals.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so, obviously, there's still plenty of
See that?
opportunity within the existing area, but if we extended it, who knows what that does in terms of opening up some more opportunity, particularly around the Bachman's Valley area.
I'm just curious, and this is far-fetched, I wonder how many counties have ever extended their priority preservation areas? Kind of, Carroll County seems to always lead the way in this.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that.
And what the success was when they did that. It's always about chasing the money. And when you go to the state, you try to get the biggest bang you can get for your buck for the 1.3 million you put up to get the $2 million back.
And again, it's the sticky wicket, because obviously moving things more east, a developer might be more apt to want to develop closer east, because that puts you closer to Baltimore and Owings Mills and all that type of stuff too. So there's just no easy answer to it.
That still doesn't preclude anyone from taking a hard look at the 97 corridor and what would be appropriate as far as a future commercial, industrial type development.
That can still happen.
Along some of those corridors, and the same way on the 140 corridor that heads towards Tawnytown.
Right.
Still think that needs to be part of what we're looking at. So how many acres more would that encompass from our current priority preservation area?
I don't know if we've calculated that. Do you know? I don't think we calculated.
It's way more than 10%.
So the original area was, I think, about 88,000 acres,
Yes.
something like that. Just eyeballing it, it might be another 20,000 acres? Question?
As long as we dwell on contiguous acres. That's so important, to try to fill in the pieces and put priority on the contiguous acres.
So do we want to retain this recommendation, at least to move to the next level of conversation? Maybe with a caveat that it take into consideration additional discussions around areas areas you might want to identify for economic development or other kinds of
I think
growth?
that would be a good footnote.
I think that's great.
Okay.
Put in, so I don't have any problem expanding the area as long as we carry through with a study for the future on these corridors.
Okay.
It's a balance.
It is. You
quite a
got
balance here.
two competing goals there. So, yeah.
Okay. And I do think that the economy work group had identified some specific targeted areas for economic development. We sort of separated those out, and we'll talk about them in a very focused conversation at the end of this. So we'll get to those kinds of questions before too long.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on then. The next recommendation is to explore a transfer of development rights program that further preserves rural areas by transferring residential lot rights from the PPA to less agriculturally productive remaining portions or other suitable receiving areas.
Are you talking about TDRs?
Yes.
That doesn't work very well in other jurisdictions. That has not worked very well. We studied TDRs time and time again over the years. And it's kind of like chasing your own tail. Seemed like for every positive, there were a couple negatives. And so maybe things have changed. But I've yet to understand how they've changed in a positive way. I think there's
So-
only been one instance in Carroll County where TDRs were ever utilized
As part of the VRA.
as part of the VRA, correct. That was probably 40 years ago.
So just for everybody's background, this question of TDRs has come up multiple times in the past. Usually, there are a couple of sticking points. The first being identifying an appropriate receiving area. And the second being the numbers that are required for the number of development rights being transferred versus the number of lot rights being developed. And it's very hard to get the economics to work out, the financials to work out in a way that makes that transaction work for everybody, both the seller and the receiver / developer. They have to be done at pretty high numbers in order for the value of land to just work out from receiving or from sending and receiving areas.
You're kind of messing with zoning here when you work with a TDR program. And you hit the nail on the head, about finding that balance and then finding the economic impact and how it works. And Unless you want to add staff.
Is that something we would want to pursue in the master plan, a TDR development, or, you know?
Well, that's what this
Yeah,
recommendation is.
that's what the recommendation is. And
Yeah. We can certainly study it, and if there's interest in looking to see, has anything changed? I think the last time we looked at it was probably about 10, 15 years ago. Maybe the economics have changed. Maybe there is something in the mix that makes it more viable as an option, but we haven't been able to make the numbers work in the past.
I'll speak kind of bluntly. I hate to waste staff's time on something that just has never, unless we're willing to change zoning in the county, which I hate to hear about. TDRs just add to a complexity of things that don't show any major benefit. I don't feel. That's just an opinion, and we did study that a couple times. It didn't work.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhat familiar with Harrod County, having done them, and I don't see a problem with at least leaving it as an exploration to look towards the future, because there may be some changes that come about. My opinion.
Well, yeah, it sounds like, I mean, flexibility in zoning in the future. Is that what this is, basically?
I think so.
Gives that capability. I think that's probably not a bad thing.
So what do you want to do? Keep it in for now or take it out?
I say yes.
Keep it in?
I do.
Yeah, I say we'll keep it in for now.
Matt?
Okay.
Sorry, Ralph.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, TDRs, you know, they were a thing. Then we could use them because there wasn't a place to go with them. So,
That may still be the case.
yeah, I mean, someone might want to look at it down the road, but I think they gotta do. And the one thing that makes residents more upset than anything is when you have a piece of land that they're thinking is not gonna get developed, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're building houses on it without, you know.
That's true.
I mean, we see that all the time. Everybody always assumes that the piece of ground behind them is never gonna get built on, even though, you know, unless it's already in some kind of preservation. So,
Okay, so leave it in for now. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, the next set of recommendations, there are 3 of them here that we kind of grouped together. So these are coming out of the economy work group. Topic 1, land use recommendation 1 and 2, and topic 2, land use recommendation 1. So these 3 right here. So we have a recommendation to comprehensively review zoning for potential commercial and industrial designations, focusing, okay, let me start again. Comprehensively review zoning, meaning zoning maps, not zoning text, for potential commercial and industrial designation. The focus should be on areas with existing infrastructure or where infrastructure can be made available with minimal investment. Rezoning should occur where the surrounding community can support and enhance the anticipated uses. Then we have a recommendation to identify potential areas of redevelopment or revitalization. And a third recommendation that's generally the same is to explore the opportunities for mixed-use development, which may require amendments to the zoning code to support, as well as a comprehensive review of zoning to ensure appropriate integration into communities. So back on our planned commercial centers discussion, this is where some of that kind of conversation is coming from. So a few different recommendations related to identifying areas for economic activity, specifically commercial and industrial, redevelopment and revitalization, and mixed use. And you see a couple of comments that we got when we sent this out for internal review. So economic development was offering the comment that rezoning for commercial and industrial is often not, is often a tricky proposal for existing communities, but that's where you're going to find the infrastructure that, that really is needed to support those kinds of uses. Comment from Public Works mentioned that Westminster has a mixed-use infill zoning category that we could look at for some of our conversations around mixed use. And then from the comprehensive planning staff, just a comment that all of these kinds of things related to zoning or potentially rezoning for certain types of uses have to start really with the land use designations that you all apply as part of the master plan. So there's just a question here about whether these specific recommendations need to be retained because you are going to go through this process of evaluating land use designations for all kinds of uses as part of your process in updating the master plan. We could retain the recommendations for now and then maybe revisit them at the end of the process, but just from a purely process standpoint, it doesn't make sense to have a recommendation in a plan to do something that the plan is doing. Does that make sense? But if these are things that you want to make sure get communicated on a map, then we can retain them for now, just so that we know that we're being attentive to that when we get to that point.
Anybody? I remember this discussion during the work group and just knowing where was the question of, for the group. So I think the map exercise is pretty basic and necessary. Just to, say here's where the potential is, or here's where they currently exist.
And I mean, it might be good too, if we do put it in the master plan. I mean, obviously with, like you were saying, everybody thinks that every piece of land around them won't be developed. It's kind of right here saying, well, it's in the master plan that the potential is there to a degree.
Isn't that already in there?
It already exists, right? The map is.
Yeah.
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 The map is your visual expression, your graphic expression of what the county wants to see happen.
Right.
So you will need to look at that map to say, where do we want commercial and industrial development. Is that reflected in the current map? Do we need to make changes to it? The question about areas for redevelopment or revitalization can be factored into those discussions as well. And then mixed use might kind of depend on where some of those conversations go that I was alluding to earlier when we were talking about planned commercial centers. So is that a new designation for mixed use? Is it a land use type that's kind of integrated into other designations like commercial or like residential? We'll kind of see.
I remember part of the conversation was, should there be like a designated commercial industrial zone
Yeah.
or zones?
So like a mixed commercial, mixed
Right.
industrial. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I have no problem looking into it.
Yeah.
Keep it.
So just keep these for now, and then when we come back, once we go through the whole process and we're kind of finalizing recommendations, we can decide if these are redundant or suggest some future action that needs to be taken to implement the plan. Okay? All right, I see that we are at 10 to 12 right now. We obviously have a few more recommendations to get through here, but I know some folks need to head out. So we can continue this discussion at our next meeting,
April 1st.
April 1st.
Yeah.
We have all kind of shenanigans.
We
I
can make
will
up,
be
we can
here.
make up a bunch of stuff and see if it's real.
And between now and then, we'll take a look at what the next group of recommendations may be.
I know.
We'll probably try to get through the rest of these land use ones and then
Okay.
move on to the next category as well at our April meeting.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Sounds
Right.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep.